So let us begin with a little bit of recapitulation of what we have been doing. What we have done is define this external force method. So for the case of harmonic oscillator, we defined in the Dirac picture to be equal to integral, well actually we did only, so we did configuration space. This would be the usual Lagrangian. And to this we add so this introduction of F is essentially a trick, okay. In the presence of F, it looks like this, because Q's are going to get integrated out, so there will be no functional dependence left. So J is the bookkeeping function that will keep track of what is happening, and when we do then we do one more modification, which is that change to vacuum to vacuum. So I will just skip two things together, and then for vacuum to vacuum amplitudes, which we call W of J of F here, which is this XF infinity xi minus infinity in the presence of this F, as equal to, you know, you have to insert xf infinity, xftf and so on. So you can carry this out, advance from any finite time tf to infinity on both sides. So after all of that is done, it becomes W0 times that f df. So it becomes the same as W you would have obtained with you know, shifted values of Q, but you just get usual W, but then e raised to I times, and then this integral dt dt prime f of t d of t minus t prime f of t prime, where d becomes the Feynman propagator. Is equal to in this language, what is it, theta of t minus t prime e raised to minus I omega t, is that right, omega t minus t prime, and plus theta of t prime minus t e raised to plus I omega t minus t prime. 1 by 2 is here, correct. Now this whole thing just carries over to field theory, where instead of t we have x, y, z and t. So in QFT, we will have W of J where now j is function of x, which is the so called vacuum to vacuum amplitude. And that has the form w of 0 times e raised to I over 2 and integral d4 x. And now this we wrote in terms of in momentum space, probably directly. Yeah, we wrote in terms of d4p. So minus I over 2. Is there a minus sign here also? Probably. So minus I over 2, but now we write this in momentum space for ease. I will just explain quickly what happens. So then it is d4p and then j tilde of p j tilde of minus p divided by p square minus m square plus I epsilon, where the Fourier transform for any function. So j tilde p is defined with e raised to minus ipx. So this is very similar to this. We could have written d4x prime, that check that integral d4x prime j of x and then delta Feynman x minus x prime and then j of x prime becomes equal to this d4 that j tilde p okay. So that is same form as this, just that it is converted to this. The important property we use is that the Feynman propagator is function only of the difference of the arguments. So there is translation invariance. So in 2x x's are not really required, 1p is enough in the momentum space. Okay. So there is a delta function. So uses translation invariance. So this is the sort of starting point of the next part, and then we had said that any Green's function can be defined. So which is actually so Ramond doesn't somehow write this T product definition, but I think that is what it has to be. So Gn of x1, x2, G, we call this now that becomes, how do you evaluate the T product of these things? Well, we know that that is equal to integral of d phi e raised to I s of phi and plus I integral j phi, and then these insertions so this is actually same as this you know, this is the definition if you like. We know that if in the path integral if you insert certain operators, you will automatically get the expectation value of the t product between these endpoints, but that is what we are calling Green's function now. But clearly this can then be got by using this trick, by using this expression, because all we have to do is vary with respect to I times j. So this is equal to 1 over I times variation with respect to x1 of the simple amplitude in presence of j, and I have to put this because this has no j in it. So after doing this, one evaluates it at j equal to 0. So this is j but evaluated at j equal to 0. This amplitude will not contain any phi's. This amplitude is this, right? It does not contain any phi because phi got integrated out. But there is a j dependence. So if I vary this with respect to j, it will bring down a phi at x1, it will bring down a phi. So I can populate this numerator by the required operators by acting by d by dj on this, right? Very standard trick for generating functions. And so this is what we finally say is our Green's function. Gn is this. So this is how far we got, and then we want to, so we check then that this delta f emerges more or less automatically. If you start with the free theory, the free, just as we started here with the harmonic oscillator, which serves as a emblem for, what is the word, which it is emblematic of the somewhere where we wrote S, right? So it's the free propagator. Square phi square. So that looks very much like half q dot square plus half omega square q square, because this is half phi dot square minus half d by d phi by dx square, right, the Laplacian square. So this is what the free action is, and from that we generate this delta Feynman, which we can check satisfies, which works as Green's function of the classical differential equation. Here Green's function in the traditional sense, no quantum mechanics, just in the partial differential equation, Green's function of the PDE and by the conventions that Ramond uses, it is equal to minus delta 4. So this can also be checked. So you can just see that that's exactly what you get. So far so good. Now we can do a very simple calculation in this particular case. So for the free theory, there are no interactions, just the Klein-Gordon. Is that if I calculate G2, so G1 will be 0, right? Because if I vary with respect to G, what happens J, so G1 will be equal to 1 over I d by dj of this Wj, but that will be equal to be evaluated at j equal to 0, but that will bring down when I vary with respect to j, I am left with a delta and a j, right? So we are left with because this is in the exponent, this whole thing is in the exponent. If you vary this w of j with respect to j, well, we should write in real, so these two are same, right? So this is same as this. So if I vary with respect to this, I will bring down this remainder piece down with a d4 x prime. Okay, but I have to evaluate it at j equal to 0. So while w of j equal to 0 is some sensible answer of the free unforced theory, this j is going to make it equal to 0. So this equal to 0, right, at j equal to 0. So our next hope is that we calculate G2. Oh, not 1, sorry, but variation. So that then exactly produces the propagator. Because I varied with respect to first j, this will come down, then I vary with respect to second j, that will get cancelled and this delta times this w will remain, and then of course you will also have j acting on this w itself, but that term will go to 0 for the same reason that this first term went to 0 here, and the only term that remains non-zero when you send j to 0 is this one. Aside from the w of 0 itself, which should be really factored out. Okay. And there is a minus sign in the exponent, right? So that is why there is no minus sign. Yeah, this has, yeah, there is this minus sign. So when you vary, you would have had that minus sign over here. So when you vary second time and you get a I to come down, so you are varying with respect to I in the denominator to cancel that I, but when you do it the second time, there will be a I in the denominator which will go to numerator with that minus sign, it will become plus I. So now we calculate delta, the G4 by the same method. So we can see that G3 has to be 0, any odd G now so the point of doing this exercise is that we begin to see the particle interpretation of this big formalism. We have plugged in a field phi into the action, but what we come up with, where did we write the Lagrangian? Yeah. So we are dealing with a field theory, but after we do this endpoint function, we eventually come out with a particle-like interpretation, because we already have this G2, which is the Feynman propagator, which, as you know from your quantum 3, has basically this kind of behavior. It propagates positive frequency particles forward, negative frequency particles backwards. So one often draws this G2 as a line joining the points x1 and x2, create a particle here, destroy it there, or destroy an antiparticle there and create it here. We will do it in a minute, but just to tell you in advance why we are doing this. So we are doing this to see that the particle-like interpretation emerges automatically from the Green's functions of this theory. So G4 then is going to be, you can see actually what happens if I vary 4 times. The point is that when I vary with first 2 of the arguments, I will get a delta f down. When I vary with the next j, these things cannot give any contribution. So again, more deltas have to be brought down from the exponent of w. So what will happen is that I will get I times delta f x1 minus x2 and I times delta f times x3 minus x4. Right, this is the only, this is there are 2 other terms of this kind, but essentially you get pairwise products. You cannot get anything new from the what comes down in the numerator or the main line, because you can vary it only twice and that just produces a delta. The next non-trivial answers come when you vary again twice, one more delta comes down, except that all the orderings are possible. So you can get this plus I times delta x1 so since you are going to differentiate with respect to all the 4 and set j equal to 0 in the end, temporarily you can get various combinations down. So you will also have this. So all the permutations happen. This is happening because we have a free theory. There are no interactions. Okay, so no complicated connections between these lines get generated. But what we do is we represent this diagrammatically. So when you do d by dj1, let's say, you will bring down an integral delta. Now all you know is you have a d4 x prime, x1 minus x prime times j of x prime and times the w of j. When you vary twice, and have not set j equal to 0, you could end up with d4x double prime delta of x2 minus x double prime integral d4x prime delta of x1 minus x prime times w. Right, and the j's, of course, the jx. And so on. So next you do d by dj3. The point is, when I now hit with a dj3, so at this point itself I have 2 possibilities. One is this, where this has come down from the exponent, or the J2 could just hit this. So I will have this plus simply delta x2 minus x1 times W. So both the terms occur when I do this, but of course this term would get set to 0 if I set j equal to 0. But now I am going to act with more j's. Now those j's can remove this or bring down a more j and so on. So in the end you end up with all the combinations like this. Okay. So this is also an exercise, just check this in detail, exercise 2. So the G2 we interpret simply as creation of a particle at x1 and going to x2. So I will write it like this: particle with T2 greater than T1. Or like this, antiparticle if T1 is greater than T2. So that is the detailed interpretation of this. I mean, this is what the Feynman propagator actually gives, and we think of it as a particle being created here and transported there, or antiparticle created at T1 and sent to T2. Okay. Then the G4 has the interpretation that it is equal to x1 x2 times, so there is a cross between the two, x3 x4. So these amplitudes are just multiplied to each other, the two product of the two deltas. Plus sign. So this plus sign is in the sense of linear superposition. So in quantum mechanics, this 4-point amplitude is a sum of 3 possible ways it can happen with equal weightage. So either x1 goes to x2 and x3 goes to x4, or x1 goes to x3 and x2 goes to x4, or x1 goes to x4 and x2 goes to x3. Now there is one advanced lesson here which the book doesn't spend time explaining at this point, but it just drops the answer, and I have also chosen to postpone it because we have not done any interacting theory yet. But the point is that the fact that we come out with this kind of a combinatoric answer, sum of various products of some more basic Green's functions. So what has happened is, this of course we already saw. But the more interesting remark is that G4 is simply linear combination of products of G2. In fact, in a free theory it is somewhat boring. Even if you do G56, you will only get products of 2-point functions because there is nothing else that can happen. So due to this being a free theory, all higher G2M will be sums of products of Mg2s. It can be shown that the combinatorics of it works out correctly. So in the more general case, new irreducible vertices however, we still get this products of the lower Green's functions anyway in the higher one. This redundancy of seeing the lower ordered ones appear in higher order ones can be removed by a very clever trick, and that trick is that you look at that you take a log of this. The way these are the combinatoric factor comes out exactly correct, so that so let me write 3a and 3b. So due to b, if you do this, then because there is an exponent of whatever is z, there will be various powers of the terms of z which will get multiplied among each other to produce w in exactly the same way that the lower ordered Green's functions multiply to produce higher order ones. Okay. So it can be shown that, so this will be done in the future. So it can be shown that Z J is the generating functional of the connected diagrams. So this is one diagram. So this G4 is sum of 3 diagrams, but this diagram is disconnected because it has some 2 parties not talking to the other 2. It's like it has fallen into. So this is a disconnected diagram, this is disconnected. But one can show that if you take the log of W, which is this Z, then you get only the connected ones. And when you exponentiate this connected diagram generating function, then you will generate all the product pieces in exactly such a way as to get the W with products of lower order diagrams multiplying it. So in our case it is somewhat obvious. So in the simple case, so free theory, we already see this because W of j equal to W0 times e raised to minus I times Z with Z equal to, I have to retain that 1/2 factor, 1/2 integral j tilde, so or well 1/2 d4x1 d4x2, right. I should use Ramon's notation, but may as well write down everything. So jx1 delta f x1 minus x2, but this we already know is g2. And we know that exponentiating just g2 is going to produce the W. So Z, this log of W in the case of the free field theory is simply, in simple language, it is equal to 1/2 j g2j. That's all there is. And because it is a free theory, that's the only non-trivial diagram you have, and its exponentiation will generate all the possible diagrams of W. Okay. But when you have non-trivial physics going on, then you will find newer G's at a higher level, and that is the aim of my part of the this set of lectures, to show that that is what we get. But we will be going through a few more things in between. So now we introduced the Green's function last time. One last comment about this is that there is a momentum space version of this business of connected, and I should tell you that I am giving you only a preliminary discussion. This discussion goes better, can get better and better as you spend more time.